Outcome is good. The way I got there, no bueno, as the Greeks say. I chose the complete wrong approach. I would have had a bit more of it. I would have just glued up a big block, shaped it out of that. Easy peasy. Why didn't I do that? Just watch me struggle if you want.
And clearly you do, because you're here. So start off by giving my bandsaw blade a little push. He needs a bit of TLC and a little bit convincing to get started. Off camera, I stuck my musical note shaped template onto a piece of MDF, which I'm cutting out here. And next we're going over to the disc sander where I refine that shape a little bit more. Also, don't get any ideas please. The on and off switch of my disc sander does have a patent. Next I went over to my drill press and picked out a little sanding attachment that would suit the shape best. After I got most of it cleaned up on the drill press, I refined the rest by hand. Then I stuck my template down onto my workbench and traced a parallel line. I just used a random bracket that looked like a pretty good distance, and that gave me an idea of the overall dimensions. Then I was onto the scrap wood boxes, picking out whatever I could find leftover-wise of the Surian cedar. So at first I started to cut a bunch of strips on an angle to roughly create the curve that I had drawn onto my workbench. As mentioned before, in hindsight I should have just glued up a bigger block and shaped it all out of that, but at this point I was still pretty convinced that it's going to go smooth anyway. Gluing up the first blank gave me a good indication on how much more scraps I need to find, so back over to the scrap box we go. I ripped it first in the bandsaw and then brought it over to the jointer to true up all the edges. And after a quick trip through the thicknesser, I brought it over to my table saw where I ripped it all to uniform widths and also trimmed everything back to the same length, and from there I started gluing up sections. I left everything to dry overnight, and the next morning, after giving Basil a little snack for brekkie, I went ahead and took everything out of the clamps. And then I quickly chopped all those blocks in half and started laying them out on my workbench where I had it all drawn out. And here you can kind of see how awkward it actually was, because it was really hard to figure out all the angles and then managing to somehow clamp it all together. Next I started preparing the glass, which isn't quite glass, but it's mainly glass. I'm just going to call it glass. And if you're wondering why I chose that approach for the glass, me from the past will explain that in a second.
It's been about 4 to 5 days, so this thing had plenty of time to dry. I did not take the lid off yet. I'm just hoping everything's alright. Alright, so at first glance, doesn't look too bad. I've never done anything like it. The reason I decided to try it this way, because I wanted to cut the musical notes out of glass. Turns out it was toughened. Kabang! And I thought I'd just roll with it. I also made a bunch of different samples in different colors, and then ended up just doing black anyway. I'm really hoping the light will shine through enough. Christmas time, let's unwrap this bad boy.
Yeah, unfortunately, I did not get that on camera, but boy oh boy, it was a bit of a shocker.
Let's hold it against the window and see what it looks like.
At this point I couldn't help myself, I was just curious to see and get a bit of an idea of how the light will actually shine through it. Next on the list, it was time to make up a few templates. After cutting the bulk away on the bandsaw, I took my template and my trim router and started chasing up that shape. For the inner curves, I had to use my bandsaw with this comedic long blade in it, which has a lot of deflection, so it was a bit of a sketchy moment, but luckily it didn't deflect in the direction where it caused any dramas. Once my trim router couldn't reach any further, I brought it all over to the router table, and with the help of a couple of different bits, I got it all shaped up. And then I was on to drilling pilot holes for the brass balls that will hold both sides together, as I will in a little bit actually cut the whole thing in half so I can recess the glass in from the inside.
Come in, buddy. Drill it hole. What are you up to? Really need a proper woodworking bench. I've done so much in here, like everything. There was a shed filled to the brim with crap when I got here, but I haven't got around to making myself a proper woodworking bench, so this is the only vice I've got. What a joke.
So that took a bit of a steady hand and some patience, and off camera I neatened those cuts up as well on a big sheet of MDF that had some sandpaper stuck to it to keep everything nice and flat. Then I started working on the recess that will hold the glass panels. A quick little round over with my blunt ass round over bit, and then spent a fair bit of time sanding all the burn marks out. Here I'm cutting some threads straight into the timber. It is not something that will be taken apart very often, even though it is very soft timber. I didn't see the need for threaded inserts, so I just cut the threads and then just tipped a little bit of CA glue in all of them to keep them from wearing out. After quickly cutting a sacrificial base for the bandsaw just to prevent scratching of the glass, it was on to cutting them out.
Alright, good news, it looks good. Bad news, I did another stupid. Alrighty, this is pretty lovely, if I may say so myself. The other side looks good as well from far, but if you look closer, one thing I didn't take into consideration, when I made those, I always knew that the underside, because I taped it, will have little lines from the tape, but I was like, oh, I'll just face them out. But you can only face it in a certain direction, so I should have made one reverse somehow. Anyway, in certain lights you can see the line, which I don't really like. I went through so much effort with this thing. I'm just gonna sand it back and then I have to get it clear again, so I'll have to wet sand it. Might even give it a polish, we'll see. I'm gonna do as little as possible because I really don't want to be pissing around with that. I just want to get this thing glowing and make something else. However, this side is cool. It has like a nice texture to it. That's the word. Me no liking. So let's sand it back. Let's go. Alright, have you ever made something similar? I would really like to know how you approached it. The only thing left are the beauty shots, so let's go to that. And if you don't mind, do a bit of this and a bit of that, and I'll see you next week. Thanks.
you.